The stars looked cold and distant through the cracked window of Daewon's ship. He sat in the pilot's chair staring at the message that had arrived an hour ago. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. The message was encrypted with codes he had never seen before. Royal codes. Someone important was in trouble. Daewon was 32 years old and had been fighting for half his life. His face showed the scars of 100 battles. His eyes were dark and tired, but they still burned with purpose. He was a mercenary now, taking jobs that others were too afraid to accept. People across the galaxy knew his name. They knew he could be trusted. They knew he never failed. His ship, the Iron Lotus, was small but powerful. It had saved his life more times than he could count. The walls were covered with weapons and equipment. Everything had its place. Everything was ready for the next fight. This was his home now, the only home he had left. 15 years ago, pirates had destroyed his colony. Daewon had watched his family die. He had been too young to save them, too weak to fight back. That day had changed him forever. He had sworn never to be weak again. He had sworn to protect those who could not protect themselves. Now he traveled the dangerous edges of known space, looking for people who needed help. The message on his screen was from the Valerian Empire. Daewon knew about the Valerians. Everyone did. They were one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They had technology humans could only dream about. Their warriors were legendary. Their empire spanned 100 star systems, but even they needed help sometimes. Daewon pressed the button to decode the message. It took several minutes. When the words finally appeared, his breath caught in his throat. The Valerian royal family had been captured. A criminal organization called the Crimson Fang had taken them from a diplomatic ship. They were holding them at Blackrock Station, a fortress in lawless space where governments had no power. The message explained that Queen Nira herself was among the prisoners. So were her 3 daughters. The Crimson Fang had demanded no ransom. That was strange. Criminals always wanted money or power. Daewon read the intelligence reports attached to the message. His frown deepened. The cartel was planning to sell the princesses to a rival empire. This was not about money. This was about war. The Valerian military could not attack Blackrock Station. If they did, the hostages would be killed immediately. They needed someone who could slip in quietly, someone who could get the royal family out before anyone noticed, someone expendable, someone human. Daewon stood and walked to the weapons locker. He pulled out his armor piece by piece. The metal was scratched and dented from countless fights. He checked his plasma rifle, his energy blade, his grenades. Everything worked perfectly. He always kept his equipment ready. His hands moved automatically as he prepared. His mind was already planning the mission. Blackrock Station was a maze of corridors and rooms. It had thousands of criminals living inside. The Crimson Fang controlled everything there. Getting in would be difficult. Getting out alive would be nearly impossible. But Daewon had done impossible things before. He sat back down and sent a reply to the Valerian contact. He would accept the contract. He would rescue their queen and her daughters. He did not ask about payment. That could wait. Right now, innocent lives were in danger. That was all that mattered. The reply came quickly. They were grateful. They were desperate. They sent him detailed maps of Blackrock Station, though the information was weeks old. They sent him false credentials that would identify him as a weapons dealer. They sent him encrypted communication codes so he could contact them once the rescue was complete. Daewon studied the maps for hours. He memorized every corridor, every landing bay, every escape route. The detention level was deep inside the station, surrounded by security checkpoints and guard posts. The Crimson Fang was not taking chances. They knew how valuable their prisoners were. He plotted his course to Blackrock Station. It would take 3 days at maximum speed. 3 days to prepare. 3 days to go over every detail of the plan. 3 days to accept that he might not come back. As the Iron Lotus jumped into hyperspace, Daewon thought about the people he was going to save. He had seen pictures of Queen Nira in the intelligence files. She was tall and elegant with silver skin and eyes that glowed faintly blue. The Valerians were beautiful in an alien way. They looked almost human, but not quite. Something about their proportions was different. Something about the way they moved was too graceful. Her daughters looked like younger versions of their mother. Hana, the oldest, had a serious expression in her picture. She wore military decorations on her uniform. Yuna, the middle daughter, was photographed in a laboratory surrounded by scientific equipment. Isil, the youngest, smiled in her picture. She looked kind and gentle. Daewon wondered what kind of people they were. Were they brave or frightened? Would they fight beside him, or would he have to carry them? He had worked with aliens before. Some were tough. Others panicked when danger came. He hoped the Valerian royal family was strong. He would need their help to escape. The ship's computer beeped softly. Everything was running smoothly. The jump to hyperspace was stable. Daewon stood and went to his quarters. It was a small room with just a bed and a desk. He lay down but did not sleep. He never slept well before a mission. Instead, he stared at the ceiling and thought about what was coming. He thought about the people he would have to fight. He thought about the traps he would have to avoid. He thought about the moment when he would finally reach the prisoners and set them free. Somewhere in the darkness of space, Queen Nira and her daughters were waiting. They did not know that help was coming. They did not know that a human warrior was racing toward them. They did not know that one man was willing to risk everything to save them, but they would know soon. Daewon closed his eyes and took a deep breath. In 3 days, he would either be a hero or he would be dead. There was no middle ground. There never was. The Iron Lotus flew through the stars, carrying him toward his destiny. Blackrock Station grew larger in the viewing screen as Daewon approached. It looked like a giant piece of twisted metal floating in the darkness. Hundreds of ships were docked at its ports. Lights flickered across its surface like dying stars. This was a place where laws meant nothing. This was a place where only strength mattered. Daewon had changed into the clothes of a weapons dealer. His armor was hidden beneath a long coat. His rifle was broken down into pieces and packed in a cargo case. He looked like just another criminal coming to do business. That was exactly what he wanted. The docking controller's voice crackled over the communication system. It was rough and suspicious. Daewon gave his false identity and explained he was delivering weapons to a buyer on the station. The controller demanded payment for docking privileges. Daewon transferred the credits without argument. Criminals respected those who paid without complaining. The Iron Lotus settled into a docking bay on the lower levels. Daewon grabbed his cargo case and stepped out into the station. The air smelled like oil and sweat. The corridors were crowded with aliens of a dozen different species. Everyone carried weapons openly. No one made eye contact. That was how you survived in a place like this. Daewon walked slowly, studying everything around him. He noted the security cameras, the guard posts, the locked doors. He memorized faces and patterns. A good warrior always knew his battlefield before the fight began. He made his way to a bar in the commercial district. It was dark and loud, perfect for gathering information. He sat at the counter and ordered a drink. The bartender was a four-armed alien with yellow eyes. He served the drink without a word. Daewon listened to the conversations around him. Criminals like to talk. They like to brag about their plans and their victories. He heard about smuggling routes and illegal cargo. He heard about gang wars and territory disputes. And eventually, he heard about the Crimson Fang's special prisoners. 2 aliens at a nearby table were discussing the hostages. One of them worked as a guard in the detention level. He was complaining about the extra security. Too many checkpoints. Too many patrols. The bosses were paranoid about someone trying to rescue the Valerian royals. But the guard thought it was pointless. No one was stupid enough to attack the Crimson Fang on their own station. Daewon smiled slightly. People always underestimated humans. He spent the next several hours moving through the station. He bought information from contacts. He bribed lower-level gang members. Slowly, he pieced together the location of the detention cells. They were 3 levels below the main hub. Behind reinforced doors and energy shields, 4 guards stood watch at all times. The prisoners were kept in stasis pods to prevent escape attempts. When night cycle came to the station, Daewon returned to his ship. He assembled his weapons and checked his equipment one final time. Then he changed into his armor. The familiar weight settled on his shoulders like an old friend. He was ready. Moving through the station during night cycle was easier. Fewer people in the corridors. Less chance of being noticed. Daewon made his way toward the detention level using maintenance tunnels and service passages. Twice he had to hide from patrol guards. Once he had to quietly disable a security camera. He reached the detention level access door. Two guards stood on the other side. Daewon could see them through a small window. They looked bored. That would change soon. He placed a small explosive charge on the door lock. The explosion was quiet but effective. The door slid open. The guards turned in surprise. Daewon was already moving. His plasma rifle fired twice. Both guards dropped before they could raise their weapons. Alarms immediately began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Daewon had known this would happen. There was no way to rescue the prisoners quietly. Now it was a race against time. He ran down the corridor toward the detention cells. More guards poured out of side rooms. Daewon fired as he moved, never stopping. His shots were precise. Every burst hit its target. Humans might not be as strong as many alien species, but they were excellent shots. Years of evolution as hunters had given them perfect hand-eye coordination. A large alien warrior stepped into his path, holding an energy shield and a massive axe. Daewon slid under the alien's swing and fired up into its chest. The alien roared and fell. Daewon kept running. He reached the main detention room. The door was sealed with an electronic lock. Daewon pulled out a hacking device and connected it to the control panel. The device worked quickly, cycling through millions of code combinations. Behind him, he could hear more guards approaching. The lock clicked open. Daewon burst into the detention room. 4 stasis pods stood in the center. Inside them, he could see the Valerian royal family suspended in blue light. Queen Nira's eyes were closed. Her daughters floated peacefully beside her, unaware of the chaos outside. Daewon ran to the Queen's pod first. He found the release mechanism and deactivated the stasis field. The blue light faded. Queen Nira's eyes opened. For a moment, she looked confused. Then she saw Daewon and understood. He helped her out of the pod. She was taller than him, graceful even after weeks of captivity. Her silver skin gleamed in the emergency lights. Her blue eyes focused on his face. "Who are you?" she asked. Her voice was clear and strong. "I'm your rescue," Daewon replied. He moved to the next pod and began releasing her daughters. Queen Nira looked around the room. She saw the weapons, the bodies of guards in the corridor, the flashing alarm lights. She understood the situation immediately. "We need to fight our way out." "Yes," Daewon agreed. He was impressed. Most rescued prisoners panicked or froze. The Queen was already thinking tactically. Hana emerged from her stasis pod. She was breathing hard, but her eyes were sharp. "Where are we?" "Still on Blackrock Station," Daewon said as he released Yuna. "My ship is in Docking Bay 7. We need to reach it before the entire Crimson Fang arrives." Isol was the last to wake. She stumbled slightly as she stepped out of the pod. Hana caught her arm and steadied her. The youngest princess looked frightened but determined. Daewon handed weapons to Queen Nira and Hana. "Can you fight?" The queen took the rifle with practiced ease. "I was a warrior before I was a queen." Hana checked her weapons charge. "I command the 3rd Fleet. I know how to fight." Daewon nodded. He turned to Yuna and Isul. "Stay behind us. Stay close. Do exactly what we say." The sound of running footsteps echoed down the corridor. Many footsteps. The Crimson Fang was coming in force. Queen Nira took position on one side of the door. Daewon took the other. Hana stood ready behind them. When the first gang members appeared, the Queen and Daewon fired together. Their movements synchronized perfectly, as if they had fought together for years. Bodies fell. More gang members tried to push forward. Daewon threw a grenade into their midst. The explosion sent them scattering. "Move!" Daewon shouted. The group ran into the corridor, fighting their way toward the exit. Queen Nira fought like a storm, her movements fluid and deadly. Daewon was impressed again. She was not just a politician. She was a true warrior. They reached a junction where 3 corridors met. Gang members were coming from all directions. Daewon pulled out his energy blade. The weapon hummed to life, glowing white-hot. He charged into the closest group, the blade cutting through weapons and armor. Humans were known across the galaxy for their endurance and their refusal to give up. Daewon embodied both traits. He fought like a machine, never slowing, never stopping. Pain meant nothing. Exhaustion meant nothing. Only the mission mattered. Queen Nira watched him fight. She had heard stories about human warriors. Now she was seeing the truth of those stories. This man would die before he let them be captured again. The group pushed forward, leaving a trail of bodies behind them. They climbed stairs and ran through passages. Finally, they reached the docking level. Daewon's ship was waiting, its ramp already lowered. Get inside, Daewon ordered. He stood at the bottom of the ramp, providing covering fire as the royal family boarded. Energy bolts sizzled past his head. One hit his shoulder, burning through his armor. He gritted his teeth and kept firing. Queen Nira appeared at the top of the ramp. Come on, human, now. Daewon threw his last grenade and ran up the ramp. The Queen grabbed his arm and pulled him inside. The ramp sealed behind them. Daewon stumbled to the pilot's chair and activated the engines. The Iron Lotus lifted off as gang members fired uselessly at its shields. The ship blasted out of the docking bay and accelerated away from Black Rock Station. Behind them, the station's defense systems activated, but it was too late. The Iron Lotus jumped into hyperspace, carrying them to safety. In the cockpit, Daewon finally allowed himself to breathe. His shoulder burned where the energy bolt had hit him. Blood ran down his arm, but they had done it. The rescue was complete. Queen Nira stood beside him, looking at the stars rushing past. You saved our lives. Daewon did not look at her. His hands were steady on the controls despite his injury. That's what I do. The Iron Lotus traveled through hyperspace in silence. Daewon sat in the medical bay while Yuna examined his injured shoulder. Her hands were gentle but confident. She had medical training, she explained. All Valerian royals learned science and medicine as part of their education. Your bone structure is different from ours, Yuna said quietly. She was cleaning the burn wound with careful precision. Your muscle density is higher too. Is this normal for humans? Daewon nodded.
Humans evolved on a heavy gravity world.
We had to be strong to survive. Our bodies are built for endurance. Yuna applied healing gel to the wound. It felt cool against his burned skin. Fascinating. Your pain tolerance is remarkable. This injury would have most species unconscious. Pain is just information, Daewon said. It tells you something is wrong. But you don't have to let it control you. Queen Nira entered the medical bay. She had changed out of her prison clothes into a simple flight suit Daewon kept for passengers. Even in plain clothing, she carried herself with royal dignity. How is his injury? Painful but not serious, Yuna replied. The healing gel will repair the tissue in a few days. The Queen studied Daewon's face. You took that hit protecting us. You put yourself between us and danger without hesitation. Daewon shrugged with his good shoulder. That was my job. No, the Queen said firmly. Your job was to rescue us. You did that when you opened our stasis pods. Everything after that was a choice. You chose to shield us with your own body. That is not duty. That is honor. Daewon did not know what to say. He was not used to being praised. He did what needed to be done. That was all. Hana appeared in the doorway. She had been exploring the ship, familiarizing herself with its layout. Your vessel is efficient. Small crew quarters, maximum weapons capacity, redundant systems. This is a ship built for war. It's kept me alive, Daewon said. Hana crossed her arms. I commanded fleet operations for 5 years. I have seen many ships and many warriors. Your tactics during the rescue were unconventional but effective. You fought like someone with nothing to lose. I had everything to lose, Daewon corrected. 4 innocent lives depended on me. Failure was not acceptable. The princess tilted her head, studying him with new interest. You are not what I expected when I heard a human had accepted this mission. The galaxy views your species as young and reckless. We are young, Daewon admitted. Humans only reached the stars 300 years ago. Most civilizations are thousands of years older. But being young does not mean being weak. Sometimes it means being more willing to take risks that others consider impossible. Queen Nira smiled slightly. The impossible rescue. Yes, that describes what you did perfectly. The Crimson Fang had never lost a prisoner before you came. They thought they were untouchable. Isul entered the medical bay quietly. She was the smallest of the 3 daughters. Delicate in appearance but with intelligent eyes. She had been crying earlier. Overwhelmed by the trauma of capture and rescue. Now she looked calmer. I wanted to thank you, she said to Daewon. Her voice was soft. I was so frightened in that stasis pod. I thought we would never escape. I thought we would be sold like property. But then you came and everything changed. Daewon felt uncomfortable with her gratitude. Anyone would have done the same. No, Isul said firmly, showing a flash of her mother's strength. Most would not have even tried. The mission was too dangerous. The Crimson Fang was too powerful. You came anyway. You faced them alone. That takes a special kind of courage. Yuna finished bandaging Daewon's shoulder. There. Try not to use that arm too much for the next day. The gel needs time to work. Daewon stood and moved to the cockpit. The royal family followed him. Through the viewing window, hyperspace created swirling patterns of light and color. They would reach Valar Prime, the Valerian homeworld, in 2 more days. Tell us about yourself, Queen Nira said. She settled into the co-pilot's chair. Her daughters found seats around the small cockpit. We know nothing about the man who saved our lives. Daewon hesitated. He did not like talking about himself, but they had a right to know who had rescued them. I'm a mercenary. I take contracts to rescue people from dangerous situations. Before that, I was a soldier. Before that, I was just a boy living on a mining colony. What happened to your colony? Yuna asked. The old pain flickered across Daewon's face. Pirates destroyed it when I was 17. They killed everyone. My parents, my sister, my friends. I survived because I was working in a mine shaft when they attacked. By the time I reached the surface, everyone was dead. Silence filled the cockpit. The Valerian royal family understood loss. They had almost experienced it themselves. I am sorry, Queen Nira said quietly. No one should have to endure such trauma. It made me who I am, Daewon replied. I swore that day I would never let innocent people die if I could prevent it. I joined the military and learned to fight. When I left the service, I became a mercenary. Not for money. For purpose. Hana leaned forward. You could have chosen any profession. Why risk your life for strangers? Because someone has to, Daewon said simply. The galaxy is full of people who prey on the weak. If good people do nothing, evil wins. I refuse to let that happen. Isolde smiled. You are an idealist. Maybe, Daewon admitted. Or maybe I'm just stubborn. Over the next 2 days, the group talked often. Queen Nira explained Valerian culture to Daewon. Their society was matriarchal, led by women who proved their wisdom and strength. Males were valued but rarely held positions of supreme authority. Marriage was sacred, a bond that lasted for life. Divorce was nearly unheard of. Valerians mate for life, the queen explained. When we choose a partner, it is forever. This is not a rule or a law. It is simply who we are. Our hearts do not change once they have chosen. Daewon found this fascinating. Human relationships were often more complicated. Love could fade. People could grow apart. The idea of a species that bonded permanently seemed almost magical. Hana spoke about military strategy. She and Daewon discussed tactics and combat theory for hours. The princess was impressed by human military history. Your species has fought so many wars. You have learned to be very efficient at violence. We had to be, Daewon said. Earth had dozens of different nations and cultures. We spent thousands of years fighting each other before we finally learned to cooperate. Those wars taught us hard lessons. Yuna asked endless questions about human biology and culture. She was fascinated by everything. Your species produces adrenaline during stress. This chemical makes you faster and stronger temporarily. Valerians do not have this. We maintain constant performance regardless of situation. Adrenaline can be dangerous, Daewon admitted. It can make you reckless, but in a desperate fight it gives humans an edge. We can push beyond our normal limits when we need to. Isolde talked to Daewon about diplomacy and peace. She believed in solving problems through conversation rather than violence. War should always be the last option, she said. Every battle creates more pain and hatred. I agree, Daewon said. But sometimes violent people only understand violence. The Crimson Fang would not have released you peacefully. Sometimes you have to fight to protect the innocent. I know, Isolde said sadly. I just wish the galaxy was different. So do I, Daewon replied. Queen Nira watched these conversations with interest. She saw how her daughters responded to the human warrior. Hana respected his tactical mind. Yuna was fascinated by his uniqueness. Isolde felt safe in his presence. The queen herself was impressed by his honor and strength. On the 3rd day, Valar Prime appeared in the viewing window. It was a beautiful world, covered in purple oceans and green continents. 3 moons orbited the planet. Cities glittered across the surface like jewels. This was one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Home, Hana whispered. Daewon received a communication from Valerian traffic control. They were expecting the Queen's arrival. A military escort of 12 warships surrounded the Iron Lotus as it descended toward the capital city. This seems excessive, Daewon commented. You are carrying the most important people in our empire, Queen Nira said. They are taking no chances with our safety now. The ship landed at the royal spaceport. Through the window, Daewon could see thousands of Valerians gathered. They were cheering and waving. News of the Queen's rescue had spread across the planet. "They are celebrating your return," Daewon said. Queen Nira stood and placed a hand on his shoulder. "They are celebrating you, warrior. You are a hero now. You should prepare yourself for that." Daewon felt uncomfortable. He did not want to be a hero. He just wanted to collect his payment and leave quietly. But as the ship's ramp lowered and the crowd's cheers grew louder, he realized that leaving quietly was not going to be possible. The Queen descended the ramp first. Her people rushed forward, crying with joy. Her daughters followed, embracing friends and officials. Daewon stayed in the ship, watching from the shadows, but Queen Nira turned and looked back at him. She extended her hand. "Come, warrior. You have earned the right to walk in the light." Reluctantly, Daewon walked down the ramp. The crowd saw him and the cheering grew even louder. He had saved their queen. He had saved their princesses. In their eyes, he was not just a mercenary. He was something more. He was a hero. The Crystal Palace stood at the heart of the capital city. Its walls were made of transparent material that caught the light and threw rainbows across the ground. Daewon had never seen anything so beautiful. The palace made even the finest buildings on Earth look crude by comparison. He had been given quarters in the guest wing. The rooms were huge and luxurious. Soft furniture, flowing curtains, a bed large enough for 3 people. Daewon felt out of place surrounded by such elegance. He was used to the cramped quarters of his ship. A servant had brought him formal clothes to wear for the ceremony. The fabric was smooth and comfortable, tailored perfectly to his body. He looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. He looked like a diplomat instead of a warrior. There was a knock at his door. When he opened it, he found Queen Nira standing in the corridor. She wore a flowing gown of silver and blue. A crown of crystal rested on her head. She looked every inch the powerful ruler she was. "May I come in?" she asked. Daewon stepped aside. "Of course, Your Majesty." She entered and looked around the room. "Are your quarters comfortable?" "More than comfortable," Daewon said. "I am not used to such luxury." The Queen smiled. "You should be. You have earned it." She turned to face him directly. "In 1 hour, I am holding a ceremony in the Grand Hall. The entire royal court will be present. I wanted to speak with you privately before then." Daewon felt a twist of unease. "What kind of ceremony?" "A ceremony of honor," Queen Nira said. "You saved the royal family. Such an act deserves recognition and reward." "I do not need recognition," Daewon said quickly. "Just pay me the agreed amount and I will leave. You do not have to make a spectacle of this." The Queen's expression became serious. "You do not understand. In Valerian culture, a warrior who saves the royal bloodline is entitled to join that bloodline. It is our oldest and most sacred law." Daewon stared at her. "What does that mean?" "It means I am offering you my daughters in marriage," Queen Nira said calmly. "All 3 of them. This is the highest honor our culture can bestow." For a long moment, Daewon could not speak. He thought he had misheard. "You want me to marry your daughters?" "Not want. It is law. You saved our lives. You risked everything for us. In our culture, such bravery and honor deserves the greatest reward. My daughters will become your wives. You will become part of the royal family." Daewon shook his head. "No, I cannot accept this. I am just a mercenary. I am not royalty. I am not even Valerian." "That does not matter," the Queen said. "Honor transcends species. You proved your worth through action. That is all that matters to us." "But your daughters," Daewon protested. "Surely they do not want this." "They do not even know me." "They know enough," Queen Nira said. "They have seen your courage, your honor, your willingness to sacrifice yourself for others. These are the qualities we value most. They have agreed to the arrangement." Daewon felt trapped. This was not what he had expected. He had come to rescue prisoners and collect payment. Now he was being offered a marriage to 3 alien princesses. It felt wrong. It felt like too much. "I need time to think," he said desperately. "I understand," Queen Nira said gently, "but the ceremony begins in 1 hour. The entire planet is watching. If you refuse this honor publicly, it will be seen as an insult to our culture and our family. I do not tell you this to pressure you. I tell you this so you understand what is at stake." She moved toward the door, then paused. "I know this is overwhelming, but consider this, warrior. My daughters need strong partners. Partners who will protect them and honor them. Partners who value duty and sacrifice. You have proven you are such a person. This is not just a reward. It is also a need. After she left, Daewon sat on the bed and put his head in his hands. His mind was racing marriage to 3 women, to 3 alien princesses. It was absurd. It was impossible. It was insane. But he remembered Isol's frightened face when she emerged from the stasis pod. He remembered Yuna's gentle hands treating his wound. He remembered Hana fighting beside him, fierce and brave. They were good people. They deserved partners who would treat them well. Could he be that person? Could he really marry 3 women he barely knew? Another knock came at his door. When he opened it, all 3 princesses stood in the corridor. They wore formal gowns similar to their mothers. They looked nervous. "May we speak with you?" Hana asked. Daewon let them in. The 3 sisters stood together, supporting each other. Hana spoke first because she was the oldest. "Mother told us she offered the marriage arrangement. We wanted you to hear from us directly. We agreed to this. But why?" Daewon asked. "You do not know me. You do not love me. How can you agree to marry a stranger?" Yuna stepped forward. "In Valerian culture, marriage is not always about love at first. It is about compatibility and respect. Love grows over time. We have seen your character. We believe you would be a good partner." "I am human," Daewon said. "I am different from you in every way." "That does not matter," Isol said softly. "What matters is who you are inside. You are brave and kind and honorable. Those qualities exist in every good species." Hana crossed her arms. "I will be honest with you. I did not want this at first. I do not like having my life decided for me. But then I thought about the alternatives. Mother will eventually arrange marriages for us with Valerian nobles, politicians and bureaucrats who care more about power than about us. But you already proved you would die to protect us. That is worth more than any political alliance." Yuna nodded. "I want to study you. I want to learn about humans. Having you as a partner would allow me to understand your species better. That knowledge could help both our peoples." Isol smiled sadly. "I feel safe with you. After what the Crimson Fang did to us, I have nightmares. I wake up thinking I am still in that stasis pod. But when you are near, the fear goes away. I need that. I need someone who makes me feel protected." Daewon looked at each of them in turn. They were being honest with him. They were not pretending this was about love or romance. They were being practical. In their culture, marriage was about partnership and mutual benefit. Love could come later. "If I agree to this," Daewon said slowly, "I want one condition. We build real relationships, not political arrangements, not obligations. Real connections between real people. Can you agree to that?" All 3 sisters nodded. "Then I will accept," Daewon said. The words felt strange coming out of his mouth, but they also felt right somehow. Hana smiled for the first time since he had met her. "Good. Mother will be pleased." The ceremony was held in the Grand Hall, a massive room with a ceiling so high it seemed to touch the sky. Thousands of Valerians filled the space, all dressed in their finest clothes. News cameras recorded everything. The entire planet was watching. Daewon stood at the center of the hall, feeling exposed and uncomfortable. Queen Nira sat on her throne, looking every inch the powerful monarch. Her daughter stood beside her. The queen rose and the hall fell silent. Her voice rang out clearly, amplified by hidden technology. "People of Valar, today we honor a warrior who saved our royal family from certain death. Day one of Earth entered the stronghold of our enemies alone. He fought through impossible odds. He freed us from captivity and brought us home safely." The crowd erupted in cheers. Day one stood still, his face neutral. Queen Nira raised her hand for silence. "Our oldest laws state that a warrior who saves the royal bloodline is entitled to join that bloodline. Therefore, I offer my 3 daughters in marriage to Day One, Princess Hana, who commands our fleets, Princess Yuna, who advances our science, Princess Isol, who builds our diplomatic ties. All 3 will become his wives, binding him to our family forever." The crowd gasped. This was unprecedented. A human joining the royal family. An alien becoming prince consort. It was shocking. It was revolutionary. "Day One of Earth," the queen said formally. "Do you accept this honor?" Every eye in the hall turned to him. Day One felt the weight of their attention. He could refuse. He could walk away. But he thought about the 3 women who had asked him to give them a chance. He thought about the life they were offering him. A life with purpose and meaning. I accept, he said clearly. His voice carried through the hall. The crowd erupted again, this time in celebration. Queen Nera smiled. Then by the ancient laws and customs of our people, you are now betrothed to my daughters. The wedding ceremonies will be held over the next 3 days, one for each bride. Hana stepped forward first. She placed her hand over her heart in the Valerian gesture of respect. I accept you as my partner. Yuna came next. I accept you as my partner. Finally, Isolde approached. Her eyes were bright with emotion. I accept you as my partner. Daewon looked at the three of them. His future wives. His partners. His family. It still felt surreal. But it also felt right. I will honor you, he said to them. I will protect you. I will be the partner you deserve. The hall erupted in cheers once more. Musicians began to play. The celebration had begun. Later that night, Daewon stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The light stretched out to the horizon. Somewhere below, millions of Valerians were celebrating him, celebrating this impossible union. He felt a presence beside him. Queen Nera had joined him on the balcony. Are you having second thoughts? She asked. Constantly, Daewon admitted. But I gave my word. I will see this through. The queen looked out at the city. I have ruled for Tia. The first wedding was held the next morning in the palace arena. Valerian warrior ceremonies were always conducted in places of combat. Hana stood at the center of the arena floor, wearing armor instead of a wedding dress. This was how Valerian military families married. Through demonstrations of strength and skill, Daewon wore armor too, provided by the royal armory. It fit perfectly and was lighter than his old equipment. He walked into the arena and faced Hana across the sandy floor. Thousands of spectators filled the seats above them. In our tradition, Hana announced, her voice carrying through the arena, a warrior marriage is sealed through combat, not to harm but to prove we are equals in strength. My partner and I will demonstrate our skills together. She handed Daewon a training blade. It was weighted like a real weapon but had no edge. He took it and tested its balance. Good craftsmanship. We fight together against combat drones, Hana explained quietly. Show the crowd what you can do. The drones activated and flew into the arena. They were small, fast, and armed with stun weapons. Daewon counted 12 of them. They circled overhead like mechanical birds of prey. The first drone attacked. Daewon moved, his blade flashing. He struck it from the air and it fell, deactivated. Hana took down 2 more with efficient strikes. They moved around each other naturally, covering angles and protecting flanks. More drones attacked. Daewon and Hana fought as one unit. She was faster, her Valerian reflexes giving her an edge. But he was more unpredictable, using tactics the drones could not anticipate. Together they were formidable. The crowd roared its approval. They had never seen a human fight before. Daewon was showing them what his species could do. The last drone fell. Daewon and Hana stood back to back, breathing hard but victorious. She turned to face him and placed her hand over his heart. He did the same. You fight well, she said, loud enough for the crowd to hear. You are worthy to stand beside me. You honor me, Daewon replied, following the ceremonial words she had taught him. A priest in flowing robes entered the arena. He spoke the ancient marriage vows in the Valerian language. Daewon repeated them phonetically, not understanding all the words but knowing their meaning. Promises of partnership, loyalty, and mutual respect. When it was done, Hana leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. It was the Valerian equivalent of a kiss. Welcome to my life, husband. The crowd erupted in celebration. Daewon had married a princess. The first of 3. The second wedding was held that evening at the Royal Observatory. The building sat on a mountaintop, its dome open to the night sky. Stars blazed overhead, brighter than anything Daewon had ever seen from a planet's surface. Yuna waited for him at the center of the observatory. She wore a gown of deep blue that seemed to capture starlight. Her silver skin glowed in the darkness. She looked ethereal and beautiful. In our family, Yuna explained, scientists marry under the stars. We believe knowledge and discovery should guide our unions, so we make promises witnessed by the cosmos itself. She led him to a telescope. Look, Daewon peered through the eyepiece. He saw a distant nebula, clouds of gas and dust glowing with color. It was breathtaking. That nebula is where my ancestors believed souls went after death, Yuna said softly. Whether that is true or not, it is beautiful. It reminds us that we are part of something larger than ourselves. She took his hand. Her fingers were long and delicate. I marry you not because of tradition or duty. I marry you because you fascinate me. Humans are so different from us. You feel emotions more intensely. You heal more slowly but endure more pain. You are young as a species, but you have accomplished so much. I want to understand that. I want to understand you. Daewon looked at her. In the starlight, her eyes seemed to hold galaxies. I want to understand you too. Your people have knowledge and wisdom my species can only dream of. Maybe together we can learn from each other. Yes, Yuna said, smiling. That is exactly what I hope. The priest conducted the ceremony under the stars. This time the vows were different. Promises of discovery, growth, and shared learning. When they finished, Yuna took both his hands in hers. I am yours, she said. And you are mine. Let us explore this life together. Together. Daewon agreed. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead to his. The same gesture Hana had used. But from Yuna it felt different. Gentler. More intimate. The third wedding was held the following day in the palace garden. Isol had chosen a private ceremony with only family present. The garden was beautiful, filled with alien flowers and colors Daewon had no names for. Water flowed through small streams and pools. Everything was peaceful. Isol wore a simple white gown. No crown, no jewelry. She looked young and vulnerable. When she saw Daewon approaching, she smiled nervously. I did not want a big ceremony, she said quietly. I hope you do not mind. After everything that happened with the Crimson Fang, I feel overwhelmed by crowds. I wanted something quiet. I prefer quiet, Daewon assured her. This is perfect. They walked together through the garden. Queen Nira and her other daughters followed at a respectful distance. The priest was an old Valerian female with kind eyes. Diplomatic marriages are about connection, Isul explained. About building bridges between hearts. So we walk together and talk. We learn about each other. That is the ceremony. They walked slowly along the garden paths. Isol talked about her childhood, her studies, her dreams of peace between different species. Daewon listened and asked questions. He told her about Earth, about the colors of sunrise over oceans, about the sound of rain on metal roofs. I want to visit your world someday, Isol said. I want to see where you came from. I would like that, Daewon replied. Earth is not as advanced as Valar Prime, but it has beauty of its own. They reached a small pond at the center of the garden. Lotus flowers floated on its surface. Isul knelt and touched the water, sending ripples across the pond. Water is life, she said. It flows and changes but never breaks. That is what I hope our marriage will be. Flexible but unbreakable, Daewon knelt beside her. I promise to protect you, to listen to you. To be someone you can trust completely. Tears filled Isol's eyes. That is all I need. After what happened, I need to feel safe. You make me feel safe. The priest spoke the vows. They were simple promises of emotional support and mutual care. When it was done, Isul pressed her forehead to Daewon's, but she held the contact longer than her sisters had. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for saving us. Thank you for accepting us. Thank you for being here. Always, Daewon promised. The 3 wedding ceremonies were complete. Daewon was now officially married to 3 alien princesses. He was part of the royal family. He was a prince consort of the Valerian Empire. That night there was a private family dinner. Just the queen, her daughters, and Daewon. No servants, no officials, no cameras. Just family. They ate foods from both Valerian and human cultures. The queen had arranged for Earth ingredients to be imported specially. It was a thoughtful gesture. How do you feel? Queen Nira asked Daewon. 3 weddings in 3 days. That is exhausting for anyone. Overwhelmed, Daewon admitted, but in a good way. Your daughters are remarkable people. I am honored to be their partner. Hana raised her glass. To partnerships built on respect, Yuna raised hers. To learning and discovery, Isul raised hers last. To feeling safe and loved, they all drank together. Daewon looked around the table at his new family. These women had been strangers a week ago. Now they were his wives. His partners. His responsibility? I have a question, Daewon said.
How does this work?
I have never been married before. I certainly have never been married to 3 people at once, Hana laughed. None of us have done this either. Multiple marriages are rare even in our culture, usually reserved for extraordinary circumstances. We will figure it out together, Yuna said. That is what partnership means. Learning as we go. Isul looked down at her plate. I know human cultures view marriage differently. One partner at a time. This must be very strange for you. Everything about the last week has been strange, Daewon said honestly, but strange does not mean bad. I will do my best to be a good husband to all three of you, Queen Nira smiled. You already are. You treat them with respect and kindness. That is all that matters. Over the following weeks, Daewon adjusted to his new life. He had quarters in the palace now, larger than his old ship. Each of his wives had their own rooms nearby. They took turns spending time with him, getting to know him better. With Hana, he discussed military strategy. She brought him into war councils and asked his opinion on defense plans. The Valerian military was initially suspicious of him, but they quickly learned to respect his tactical insights. Humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years. That experience was valuable. With Yuna, he participated in scientific research. She studied his biology. Fascinated by human resilience, she discovered that human cells repaired damage differently than Valerian cells. This knowledge could lead to new medical treatments. With Isolde, he attended diplomatic functions. She taught him how to navigate the complex politics of the royal court. He was not naturally good at diplomacy, but he learned. For her sake, he learned. 3 months after the weddings, Daewon woke to the sound of alarms. He was in Hana's quarters that night. She was already awake, reaching for her uniform. What is happening? Daewon asked, jumping out of bed. Security breach, Hana said tersely. She was pulling on her boots with practiced speed. Multiple intruders in the palace. This is not a drill. They ran into the corridor. Guards rushed past, weapons ready. Daewon heard explosions from somewhere below. Smoke rose through the ventilation system. Yuna and Isul appeared from their rooms, both frightened. Queen Nira emerged from the royal wing, flanked by her personal guards. Everyone to the safe room, the queen ordered. Now. But before they could move, a group of armed figures burst into the corridor. They wore black armor and carried advanced weapons. Daewon recognized the symbol on their shoulders. The Crimson Fang, the cartel had come for revenge. Get behind me, Daewon shouted. He had no weapon, no armor, but he positioned himself between the attackers and his family anyway. The lead attacker laughed. The human pet thinks he can protect them. How noble, Daewon said nothing. He just watched and waited for the right moment. The attacker made the mistake of coming too close. Daewon moved fast, grabbing the alien's weapon and twisting it away. He fired once, dropping the attacker, then turned the weapon on the others. Hana grabbed a fallen weapon too. Mother and daughter fought side by side with Daewon, holding the corridor. The attackers fell back, surprised by the resistance. How many? Daewon asked between shots. At least 50, Hana replied. They infiltrated during the shift change. Someone helped them from inside. A traitor. Daewon felt anger burn through him. Someone in the palace had betrayed the royal family. More attackers poured into the corridor from both directions. They were surrounded. Daewon grabbed a grenade from one of the fallen enemies and threw it down the hall. The explosion gave them a few seconds. The safe room is compromised, Queen Nira said. She was calm despite the chaos. We need another route. The old service tunnels, Yuna said. They connect to the military base next door. Lead the way, Daewon ordered. He and Hana provided covering fire while the others ran. They fought their way through the palace, leaving bodies behind. They reached the entrance to the service tunnels. It was a hidden door behind a statue. Yuna opened it with an emergency code. The group descended into darkness, Daewon coming last and sealing the door behind them. The tunnels were narrow and dusty. Emergency lights provided dim illumination. They could hear explosions and weapons fire above them. The battle for the palace was spreading. Who are they? Isul asked. She was trembling but staying strong. Crimson Fang, Daewon said. They must have allied with someone powerful. This attack is too coordinated. They moved through the tunnels quickly. Daewon's mind was racing. This was not just about revenge. This was a coup attempt. Someone wanted the queen dead and her daughters captured. They reached a junction in the tunnels. Suddenly, figures emerged from the darkness ahead. More attackers. They had anticipated this escape route. Daewon fired immediately, dropping 2 of them. But there were too many. He felt something hit his leg and he stumbled. Pain shot through him. He had been shot. Hana pulled him up, supporting his weight. Keep moving! They ran down a side tunnel, the attackers close behind. Daewon's leg was bleeding badly, but he forced himself to keep going. His family needed him. Pain did not matter. The tunnel opened into a large underground chamber. Old machinery filled the space. It looked like an abandoned power station. "We are trapped," Yuna said, looking around desperately. Daewon scanned the chamber. There was only one entrance and the attackers were coming through it. But he saw the old power core in the center of the room. It was still active, humming with energy. "Everyone behind that equipment," Daewon ordered. He pointed to a massive metal structure that would provide cover. The royal family took positions behind the structure. Daewon stood in the open, facing the tunnel entrance. He held his stolen weapon steady despite the pain in his leg. The attackers flooded into the chamber. Their leader was a massive alien with 4 arms and thick armor. Daewon recognized him from intelligence reports. "Vex, the Crimson Fang's second in command, give us the princesses," Vex demanded. His voice echoed in the chamber. "The Queen, too." "You can go free, human. This is not your fight." "Everything involving my family is my fight," Daewon replied. Vex laughed. "Stupid. You are one wounded human against 40 trained soldiers. You cannot win." "I do not need to win," Daewon said. "I just need to hold you long enough." He fired at the power core. His shot was precise, hitting exactly where he intended. The core began to overload, sparks flying from its damaged casing. A high-pitched whine filled the chamber. Vex realized what Daewon had done. "Fall back! It is going to explode," but Daewon kept firing, forcing the attackers to take cover. The power core's whine grew louder. Energy crackled across its surface. "Run!" Daewon shouted to his family. "There is a secondary tunnel behind that wall. Go now." Hana started to protest, but her mother grabbed her arm. "We go, now." The royal family ran. Daewon stayed in position, still firing at the attackers. His leg was going numb. He could feel blood pooling in his boot, but he stood his ground. The power core reached critical overload. Daewon turned and ran, following his family into the secondary tunnel. He heard Vex screaming orders behind him. The explosion was massive. The blast wave threw Daewon forward. He landed hard, his injured leg collapsing under him. Fire and debris filled the tunnel behind him. Hands grabbed him. Hana and her mother pulled him deeper into the tunnel, away from the flames. They emerged into another corridor. This one was cleaner, with better lighting. They had reached the military base. Soldiers surrounded them immediately, weapons ready. Then they recognized the Queen and lowered their weapons. "Your Majesty, you are safe." "The palace is under attack," Queen Nira said quickly. "Mobilize all forces. I want the Crimson Fang crushed." Medics rushed to Daewon. They laid him down and began treating his leg wound. He could hear Isul crying somewhere nearby. Yuna was giving medical instructions to the medics. Hana knelt beside him, her hand gripping his. "You saved us again." "Just doing my job," Daewon said weakly. The pain was catching up to him now that the adrenaline was fading. "This is more than a job," Hana said fiercely. "You could have escaped alone. You could have left us and saved yourself. But you stayed. You held them off so we could escape." Daewon tried to smile. "I told you. Everything involving my family is my fight." The medics gave him something for the pain. His vision started to blur. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness was his 3 wives surrounding him, their faces filled with worry and love. When he woke, he was in a hospital bed. His leg was bandaged and elevated. Medical equipment beeped softly around him. Morning light streamed through the window. Yuna was sitting in a chair beside his bed. She was asleep, her head resting on the mattress near his hand. She looked exhausted. Daewon moved his fingers slightly, touching her hair. She woke immediately. "You are awake," she said, tears filling her eyes. "Oh, thank the stars, you are awake." "How long?" Daewon asked. His throat was dry. 2 days, Yuna said. She helped him drink water. "The bullet hit an artery in your leg. You nearly bled out. The surgeons worked for 6 hours to save you." "The attack?" Daewon asked. "Over," Yuna replied. "The military retook the palace within hours. Most of the attackers were killed or captured. Vex survived the explosion, but he is in custody now." The door opened. Hana and Isul rushed in, followed by Queen Nira. They surrounded his bed, all talking at once, asking how he felt, thanking him, crying with relief. "One at a time," Daewon said. Managing a weak laugh, Queen Nira took his hand. "We discovered who the traitor was. A senior security officer had been bribed by the Korath Empire. They paid the Crimson Fang to attack us during his shift." "The Korath Empire?" Daewon frowned. "Why?" "They wanted to destabilize our government," Hana explained. If we had died or been captured, it would have thrown the Empire into chaos. They could have invaded while we were weak. But they failed, Queen Nira said. Because of you. Once again you saved our lives, Daewon shook his head. We saved each other. Hana fought beside me. Your Majesty coordinated the escape. Yuna found the tunnel route. We survived because we worked together. Isol leaned down and pressed her forehead to his. You are bleeding and wounded, and you still think of everyone else first. That is why we love you. Love. The word hung in the air. It was the first time any of them had said it so directly. I love you too, Daewon said. All of you. That is why I will always protect you, no matter what. Over the following weeks, Daewon recovered. His leg healed slowly but completely. Yuna supervised his medical care personally, making sure he got the best treatment. The attack had consequences. The Korath Empire's involvement was exposed. The Galactic Council condemned them. Trade sanctions were imposed. They were isolated diplomatically, their plans in ruins. The Crimson Fang was destroyed. Vex and the other captured leaders were tried and sentenced to life imprisonment. Their organization fell apart without leadership. Daewon was offered a formal position as Royal Consort and Supreme Commander of Valerian Defense Forces. He accepted, but with one condition. He wanted to establish a joint human-Valerian military academy, a place where both species could learn from each other. The Queen 5 years had passed since the attack on the palace. Daewon stood on the balcony of his family quarters, watching the sunrise over the capital city. The sky was painted in shades of purple and gold. It was beautiful. He never grew tired of watching Valerian sunrises. Behind him he heard laughter. His children were awake. He turned to see 3 small figures running toward him. Minho was the oldest at 4 years old, Hana's son. He had his mother's silver skin but his father's dark eyes. He was brave and curious, always asking questions about everything. Jiwoo was 3, Yuna's daughter. She had inherited her mother's scientific mind. Even at her young age, she was fascinated by how things worked. She took apart her toys just to see what was inside. Sora was the youngest at 2 years old, Isol's daughter. She was gentle and kind, always concerned about other people's feelings. She cried when others were hurt and smiled when they were happy. All 3 children were hybrids, part human, part Valerian. They represented something unprecedented in the galaxy. Proof that different species could not just coexist but could create something new together. Papa, Minho called out. Come play with us. Daewon smiled. In a moment. Let your mothers wake up first. But his wives were already awake. Hana emerged from her room wearing casual clothes. She was preparing for a military meeting later that morning. Yuna followed, her hair still messy from sleep. Isel came last, carrying a tray of breakfast foods. They gathered on the balcony, the whole family together. This was Daewon's favorite time of day. Before duties and responsibilities took them in different directions. Just family. Big day today, Hana said. She was watching the children play. The human delegation arrives this afternoon. I know, Daewon replied. Earth's government finally agreed to formal alliance talks. It has taken years to reach this point. You should be proud, Yuna said. She was preparing food for the children. Your idea for the joint military academy proved humans and Valerians could work together. Now our governments will make it official. It was not just my idea, Daewon said. We all contributed. This alliance is something we built together. Isol smiled, always so modest, but the human delegates are coming to see you specifically. You have become famous on Earth. The human who married alien princesses and helped unite 2 civilizations. Daewon felt uncomfortable with the fame. He still thought of himself as just a mercenary who had done his job. But he understood the symbolic importance. Humans needed to see that their species had a place among the stars. Later that day, Daewon stood in the palace landing bay. Queen Nira stood beside him, regal in her formal robes. His 3 wives were there too, each wearing their official titles. Hana as fleet commander, Yuna as chief scientific advisor, Isol a diplomatic ambassador. The human delegation's ship landed. The ramp lowered and 12 people descended. Daewon recognized some of them from news broadcasts. Earth's Secretary of State, several military officers, a few senators. The Secretary of State approached Queen Nira and bowed respectfully. Your Majesty, thank you for welcoming us to your world. The honor is ours, Queen Nira replied. Any friend of humanity is a friend of the Valerian Empire. The secretary turned to Daewon. Commander, it is good to finally meet you in person. Earth owes you a debt of gratitude. You have shown the galaxy what humans can achieve. Daewon shook the offered hand. I just did what anyone would do. That is not true, the secretary said. You did what few would dare. You risked everything for strangers. You built bridges between our species. You proved humans belong among the stars. The delegation was given a tour of the palace. Daewon walked with them, answering questions about his life on Valor Prime. They were fascinated by everything. The architecture, the technology, the culture. One of the human senators pulled Daewon aside. Can I ask you something personal? How does it work? Being married to 3 women? That must be complicated, Daewon smiled. It is different from human tradition, yes. But it works because we respect each other. Each of my wives brings something unique to our family. Hana challenges me. Yuna teaches me. Izul comforts me. Together we are stronger than any of us alone. And they accept sharing you? The senator asked. It is not about sharing, Daewon explained. In Valerian culture, love is not a limited resource. The love I have for Hana does not diminish the love I have for Yuna or Izul. They are each unique and precious to me. The senator nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps humans have something to learn from that philosophy. The formal alliance talks began that evening in the Grand Hall. Representatives from both governments sat at a long table. Queen Nira presided over the discussions. The terms of the alliance were generous. Earth would gain access to Valerian technology and trade networks. In return, human military tactics and cultural exchange would strengthen the Valerian Empire. It was a partnership of equals. Izul led most of the diplomatic discussions. Daewon watched her with pride. She had grown so much in confidence over the years. She was no longer the frightened young woman he had rescued from Black Rock Station. She was a skilled diplomat who commanded respect. The talks lasted 3 days. Finally, an agreement was reached. Earth and the Valerian Empire would be formal allies. Trade would begin immediately. Cultural exchanges would be established. The Joint Military Academy would expand. On the final day, there was a celebration. Thousands of Valerians and the human delegation gathered in the palace courtyard. Music played. People danced and talked and celebrated this new era. Daewon stood with his family watching the celebration. Minho tugged on his sleeve. Papa, why is everyone so happy? The boy asked. Daewon knelt down to his son's level. Because something important happened. Humans and Valerians are going to be friends now. We will help each other and learn from each other. Like you and Mama? Minho asked. Daewon smiled. Yes, exactly like that. Jiwoo climbed onto Yuna's lap. Mama says humans are special because they never give up. That is true, Yuna said, stroking her daughter's hair. Humans have a quality called determination. When they decide to do something, they do not stop until it is done. Like Papa saving you from the bad people? Sora asked. She was sitting with Izul. Yes, sweetheart, Izul said softly. Papa saved us because he decided we were worth saving. And he never stopped until we were safe. Queen Nira joined them, her expression warm. 5 years ago, I made a decision that many questioned. I offered my daughters to a human warrior. Some called it foolish. Some called it desperate. But I knew what I was doing. She looked at Daewon. I saw your character in those first moments aboard your ship. I saw honor and strength and compassion. I knew you would be good for my daughters. I knew you would help unite our peoples. You gave me a family, Daewon said. You gave me a home. I will always be grateful for that. We are the grateful ones, Hana said. She stood beside her mother. You have given us so much. Children, purpose, a future we never imagined. Later that night, after the celebrations ended and the children were asleep, Daewon sat with his 3 wives in their private garden. The same garden where he had married Izul 5 years ago. Do you ever miss your old life? Yuna asked. The freedom of traveling the stars alone? Daewon thought about it. Sometimes I miss the simplicity, but I would not trade this for anything. My old life was empty. I was just surviving, moving from one mission to the next. Now I have purpose beyond fighting. Now I have people I love. And we love you, Izul said. She leaned against him. More than we ever thought possible. I never understood how humans could fall in love so quickly, Hana admitted. Valerians take years to develop romantic feelings. But with you, it was different. I think I started loving you during that fight on Black Rock Station, watching you refuse to give up, refuse to let us be taken. That was when I knew. I knew in the medical bay on your ship, Una said. When you let me examine your wound and you talked about pain being just information. You were so different from anyone I had ever met. I wanted to know everything about you. I knew when you agreed to marry us, Isul said quietly. You could have refused. You could have walked away. But you stayed because you saw we needed you. That kindness made me love you. Daewon held them close. His 3 wives. His partners. His family. I am the luckiest man in the galaxy. We are the lucky ones, Hana corrected. Not every woman finds a husband who would die for her. Or live for her, Una added. The next morning, Daewon traveled to the Joint Military Academy on the orbital moon. He did this twice a week, teaching tactics and combat to the new recruits. The academy had grown significantly. It now housed 500 students, half human and half Valerian. Daewon walked through the training grounds, observing the exercises. Human and Valerian soldiers worked together seamlessly now. 5 years ago, they had been suspicious of each other. Now they were friends and comrades. A young human recruit approached him nervously. Commander, can I ask you something? Of course, Daewon said. How did you do it, sir? How did you prove that humans were worth respecting? Daewon considered the question. I did not try to prove anything. I just did what needed to be done. I saved people who needed saving. I fought when fighting was necessary. I showed honor and courage. Those qualities exist in every species.